Namaste everybody, I'm Tamal Dodge. This is Hallie. She's going to be demoing today. We're going to do some yoga poses for absolute beginners. If you have a towel in your house, it would be a good idea to find that towel, fold it up, roll it up. So we're going to start seated in Sukhasana with the towel underneath our sit bones. We call this Sukhasana, which means easy pose, and we're just simply crossing one shin over the other. And when we sit on a towel, it elevates our seat and takes the strain out of our hips. It makes things more approachable. We'll place the palms on top of the knees, draw on the stomach, lift your chest, relax your shoulders down. And let's just breathe. Looking to establish smooth inhales and exhales, to the point where your inhale matches your exhale in its duration. It's like a call and response. The foundation of every yoga practice is rooted in the breath, because our breathing is like the metronome. It's the pulse or the rhythm of the practice. And as we sit here, try to avoid any urges to slouch. If you find that happening, you can always glide your shoulder blades down towards your glute muscles, your sit bones. If you feel like your head is drooping forward, creating an anterior head carriage, you can always tuck your chin back and in. This will align the cervical spine and works the deep neck flexors. Let's take an inhale through your nose and hold your breath at the very top. Out of the mouth. Again, inhale deeply through your nose, holding the breath. Let it go. We're going to make that same noise, the ha sound, but when we exhale, our mouth will be closed. So take an inhale, then exhale. We should do this with every exhale from here on out. It's like you're imagining you're fogging a mirror with your mouth closed. We refer to this as ujjayi, which means to be victorious or strong in our practice. So nothing today is going to be overtly intense. We're going to try to be very mindful as we move through the different postures. Keep your hands on your knees. You're going to blink your eyes open. Take an inhale, lift your chest, keep the elbows bent, and draw your sternum, the middle of your heart, towards the sky. And then as you exhale, tuck your chin into your chest, straighten the arms as you lean back. Then again, inhale, lift the chest, then exhale, round, back and forth on your own. We call these seated cat-cows. It helps us create healthy flexibility and mobility in the spine. And you're in control of how fast or how slow you're moving throughout this entire practice. If anything feels like it's too much or not quite right, you can always kind of back off from it, stepping away from it. And we come to a straight neutral spine. Cross your legs the other way, just so we're being mindful of what's going on in our hips. Now, once you're here, you're going to take your right hand out to the right and set your right fingertips on the floor. Reach your left arm up to the sky and then lean to the right. You can have a little bend in your arm, but I like to keep the right arm straight as I extend it further out, and it'll deepen the lateral stretch across your left rib cage, your serratus muscles, which look like finger imprints underneath your pectoralis muscles. And breathe. This looks good. So take a big inhale, and as you exhale, switch sides. Left hand sets down to the left, the right arm reaches up and overhead. Crawl your shoulder blades and the trapezius muscles down the back so they're not hiking up into the ears. And the goal of these sessions are to help us get familiar with the basic postures, and not only familiar with them, but how to do them appropriately or correctly. Let's come back on up. So now we're going to go for a twist. We'll take your left hand to the outer right knee and then set your right hand about maybe 6 or 12 inches out from your tailbone or sit bones. Take an inhale, lift your chest, then exhale, twist just a little bit more. Think about every inhale growing taller, and then every exhale, twist just a little bit more. So we're riding the breath to create the space. Take an inhale, and as you exhale, switch sides. So now the right hand's going to catch the outer left knee, the left hand reaches behind you and sets on the floor. We look for good posture, sitting tall. And let's come back to center. So Hallie's going to pop right into all fours, your hands and knees. Some of you guys made a lean off to the side and then kind of makeshift your way to all fours, your hands and knees. There's no hard and fast rules of how you get there, just as long as you get there. Wrists under the shoulders, knees under the hips. Take an inhale, lift your head, dip your belly. And then as you exhale, tuck your chin into your chest and let's round in your upper back like a scared cat. Again, inhale, lift the head, dip the stomach. Then exhale, tuck and round back and forth on your own. We want to keep our arms straight the entire time you're doing these movements with the spine. I like to press my shin bones towards the floor, but if this feels like it's a little sensitive on your knees, you can always just tuck your toes. If any of you guys have irritation that you're feeling in the shin bones or the tops of your knees, you can always put that towel under them as well. This looks great. So we're going to come to a flat neutral back. Extend your right leg behind you out in space and dorsiflex your right foot. So that means the right toes point down. Now, reach your left arm forward in front of you in a handshake fashion and start to lengthen. This cross-diagonal balance is stabilizing to the core muscles. It helps us be very mindful of our body in space when it's lifted and hovering. So take your front ribs in. Your tailbone scoops towards your inner thighs. So there's a little bit of that posterior tilt. Our chin stays tucked and the crown of our head is leaning forward. So we're stretching the muscles of the back of the neck. The suboccipitals are finding length. Take a big inhale. And as you exhale, set the hand and the knee towards the floor. We will switch sides. So we'll extend the left leg behind you, dorsiflex the foot, reach the right arm forward in front of you, establishing the cross-diagonal balance. The left palm is pressing down, so we're not collapsing in the left shoulder. The left inner thigh is rotating up because we're very prone to letting our left toes point out to the left and externally rotating when we want our left toes pointing down or maybe at a slight angle in. Couple more breaths. You got this. Take a big inhale, then exhale, set it all down. Let's go through another round of cat-cows. Inhale, lift the head, dip the belly, then exhale, tuck and round. Back and forth on your own. And breathe. We're going to come to a flat neutral back. So this next thing I'm going to give you a couple of variations for. I'm going to have Hallie scoot further back on her mat just a little bit. And then I'm going to have her walk her hands forward. So she's going to do puppy dog or a half downward facing dog. So her hands walk forward, her knees move back a little. And then she's going to relax her neck and head and start dipping her chest towards the floor. So I'm going to have you keep your elbows up and your arms be stretched way out. Yes. And while you're here, some of you guys will be able to rest your forehead onto the ground. Some of you guys will keep it lifted. Either one is fine. I want you to think about wrapping your triceps towards the floor. And then while you're here, you're pulling your inner thighs, your inner legs towards each other. Even though there's nothing there, it's like this energetic drawing. And breathe. So this is the half dog or the puppy dog. It's the modification of the big brother, downward facing dog. And let's come back to all fours, your hands and your knees, wrists under the shoulders, knees under the hips. Now we're gonna go for the full thing. She's gonna tuck her toes, lift her knees, and push back into the heels. First things first, you're gonna feel like your calf muscles, the hamstrings, everything's really congested and really tight. So if you wanna pedal your legs out side to side just to help expedite the loosening process, the warming process, it's a good option. It's like there's not a lot of hard and fast rules about fidgeting in your yoga practice. Sometimes fidgeting's good. Eventually, we're gonna come to a standstill where your legs are hips width apart and the heels disappear behind the toes. And then you'll make sure that your arms are shoulder width apart, the fingers point forward, the hands spread wide. If you have hypermobile elbows, hypermobile arms, you can turn your fingers a little bit outward, and that's going to give you a lot of structure. The upper outer arms, the outer triceps, outer deltoids, they all start to wrap down and around. So they're kind of wrapping back. This is going to create a horseshoe shape at the top of the pectoralis and secures your shoulder girdle. And even if a lot of this anatomical stuff doesn't make a lot of sense right now, the more we talk about it, the more it's going to start to click. The belly vacuums in, and then your hips and your thigh bones press back. This is like such a foundational pose in our practice. You'll find when you take a lot of group classes, this is like 90% of the class is down dog. While you're here, take a big inhale through your nose and hold your breath at the top. And then out of the mouth. Let's lower to the knees, all fours. So I'm gonna have Hallie again move her knees further back. We're gonna do that puppy dog again. She's gonna walk her hands way forward, and then she's gonna dip her chest towards the floor. You want the palms grounded down, the triceps wrapping down, and even here the belly is going in. It's such a wonderful pose because you should feel it stretching the armpits, the pectoralis muscles. You should feel this length across the back. And let's come back to all fours, your hands and your knees. Let's tuck your toes, lift your knees, and find the full downward facing dog. If the full down dog just doesn't feel right for you, you can always just go back to the half dog, the puppy dog. Otherwise, from here, we're gonna drift to plank or the top of a push-up. If you need to modify, Hallie's gonna drop her knees for a moment to show the ardha or the half version. This is always great. It's always there. It's always available for you. Otherwise, the knees will be lifted if you're with me. The shoulders have to stack over the wrists. We're always trying to line up joints over joints or the long axis of bones. The forearm, the radius and ulna, will slightly turn inward, and the upper part of your arm, the humerus, will wrap back a little bit. The belly goes in, and there's some bracing, as you'll find a lot of chiropractors and physical therapists will say. It's where you're firming your core. The tailbone scoops to the inner thighs, so the frontal hip points lift up to your chest. But then notice if you're rounding in your upper back, think about drawing your heart forward through the gateway of the arms as you press your thigh bones into the hamstrings. Right now you're probably going, yep, I want to put my knees to the floor. I would. Take a big inhale, and as you exhale, downward facing dog. Okay, we're gonna add on, guys. So let's drift to plank, top of a push-up. I'm gonna have Hallie modify this first one, knees to the floor. Once her knees to the floor, Hallie's gonna lean her shoulders past her fingertips, like she's looking over the edge of a cliff, then she's gonna lower halfway to the ground. When we lower halfway, the elbows are in, it's called chaturanga, and then she's gonna lower all the way to the floor. Slide your hands back if they're not under the elbows. We always want elbows over wrists. Again, lining up joint over joint. Then on an inhale, let's lift your chest about 5 or 6 inches off the earth. Let the inner thighs spin towards the sky. So rather than letting your big toes flail outward, have your big toes angle a little bit inward. And this is gonna soften the sacrum area in the lower back. Take a big inhale. And as you exhale, lower your chest and head down. Hallie's gonna start by pushing to her hands and knees and then go to downward facing dog. Perfect. She's a professional. So we're going to do that again from the knees, all modified. Then we'll do a third round without any modifications. On an inhale, drift to plank. Put your knees to the floor. Lean forward, lower halfway, pause, elbows in chaturanga. Then all the way down. Readjust if you need to, wrists under the elbows. Then inhale, lift for cobra, untuck the toes. Then lower your chest and chin down. She's going to go to her hands and knees, all fours, and then to downward facing dog. Perfect. Okay, guys, you can always do the modified version, but if you want to try the big version, here we go. On an inhale, drift to plank. Lean way out. Now lower halfway, elbows in, then lower all the way to the ground. Untuck the toes. Inhale, lift the chest. And from here, you're going to go back to all fours, your hands and knees. No more downward facing dog. So you can either swivel your feet to the side and then sit behind your feet, or you can cross one ankle over the other. It's completely up to you. We're going to start seated just like we did earlier. I'll give Hallie her towel again. So some of you guys will need your towel folded up quite a bit, and some of you guys will only need it a little bit. I have this big beach towel here, and Hallie's going to slide that underneath her sit bones. And I've only folded it so it's about 2 inches thick. Her legs will be extended out. She dorsiflex her feet, which means the toes point up. Then inhale, reach your arms up to the sky. Exhale, hinge and fold forward. So the goal is not necessarily you have to touch your toes. Most people think, well, I can't touch my toes, so I shouldn't do it. No, the goal is just to feel it in the muscle fibers and the hamstrings. So activate the quads. That's going to help you stretch the legs. The chest draws forward. If you want something to hold on to, I like to get a shirt or even another towel and loop it around my feet, and I can hold on to the towel as a modification. Or maybe some of you guys have yoga straps at your house. Even a belt will do the trick. And breathe. We always want like this marination process in our postures where we sit with it for a little while. The word asana, which most people think just means poses, actually translates to sit. So we want to sit with each pose. Be in it. Be present with it. And then from here you can sit on up. You can cross your legs if you like, so you're in the Sukhasana, the easy pose we did in the very beginning of our practice. Take your hands at prayer in front of your heart. Take a big inhale. Hold your breath. And then out of your mouth. That's our quick little lesson for today, guys. Yoga for absolute beginners. I'm Tamal. This was Hallie. Thank you guys so much.